Good morning. Blizzard just dropped what is probably the most important patch notes in the history of Diablo 4. So me and my assistant here this morning are going to break down the patch notes and let you know what's going on. So first thing, Diablo 4 Season 4 PTR, what you need to know. And they say that this PTR is launching the 2nd through the 9th. It will be for PC Battle.net players only. Now, a public test round is basically like an early access beta that's available to everybody, viewers, content creators, everybody gets access to this, and it's only for 1 week in which we give this in feedback. This PTR is focused primarily on itemization changes that will be coming within Season 4, so we get an early glimpse of that, and the basic changes are as follows. The legendary items now only have 3 affixes as compared to 4 previously, 2 on rare items, so they're dropping down affixes by effectively 1. They're going to add them back on with Masterwork or with tempering, which we'll talk about in just a moment. Smaller pool of potent affixes, so they're removing a lot of the annoying ones like, damage on Tuesday meme that you constantly hear. They're trying to make the affixes actually feel like, oh, wow, that's a good one when you get it. Only sacred items are in World Tier 3, only ancestral items in World Tier 4, so no more bloat of drops. They're really limiting the number of drops. They talk about this later on, but effectively they're going to have drops be fewer and far between, but more impactful. This will also help with some storage issues they're hoping. Affix values are turned up to be punchier. We want you and the Fiends of Sanctuary to really feel them. So they, like I'm saying, they're trying to make the items feel more impactful. They actually are doing this also by adding new affixes in general that can drop resource per second, resource on kill, lucky hit applying vulnerable. So this way we actually get new ways to apply vulnerable here, life per hit, and basic skill ranks. These are all like pretty good affixes that now have opportunities to drop on either different items or new drops entirely. So you scroll down to miscellaneous updates. Legendary items are now always 925 if level 95 plus drop them. So again, more impactful when you get them, less bloat, less looking at items. I mean, like that's just like an 830 item power. It's trash. They're trying to make that less annoying for you. Gems they have simplified by adding core stats and simplifying what the bonuses actually do. Salvage crafting and rewards have all been tuned to significantly reduce the item drop rates. I was just mentioning this. However, it will be more impactful when you do get them. Item rerolling gold cost capped when enchanting, so you no longer can have an item just infinitely go for like obscene amounts of gold. Material removal and consolidation. They're putting them together. All right, material removal, they're making it easier for you to keep track of your materials, and Forgotten Souls can now be from Whispers. So again, another buff to Whispers, and now global rare drop from Elite. So effectively, we can get these Forgotten Souls outside of just salvaging or something like that. A little bit easier to acquire now. Now, moving on to uniques. Uniques appear earlier. Some of them start in World Tier 1 and 2, so you have the opportunity to get these sort of right at the start of the game here. All uniques can drop in World Tier 3, so you no longer have to wait to World Tier 4 to try to get like your Tempest Roar, for instance. And the Uber uniques are now dropping at level 55 plus with a rare chance with a 925 item power, obviously. So now this is the tempering. And the big portion that you're probably wondering when it comes to itemization changes here, you're going to notice that there's this fancy little screen, effectively because legendary affixes are only 3. You can now add 2 more, so it actually goes to 5 now, meaning you actually gain affixes over what the old legendary items used to be, and this is sort of what the UI is going to look like. For this, you can add 2 tempered different affixes, and you can have 5 like reroll attempts on the affixes. And that is because there are categories that once you've gained these manuals, effectively, you retain them for unlimited use. So you can use them over and over and over again here. But these manuals have a variety of affixes, so you are rerolling these manuals in order to attempt to get the affix you want off of that category of manual here. And you can see ancestral items can have 2 tempered affixes from different categories, whereas the sacreds, I'm assuming via proxy, can only maybe have 1 of these because they say ancestral items can have 2 tempered affixes from different categories. So you get an item, you have 3 stats on the legendary item, you go to upgrade these tempereds, you put in a manual, you get 1 of the lines that the manual have to offer. Then you do it again if it's ancestral, you get another line, and you can reroll those manuals if you would like to get different lines of the affixes. And you can see here is an example here. He got 30% Bone Spirit, Necromancer, only tempering here from his affix. This is where we get into kind of the cool part with the greater affixes. Effectively, items that drop on the ground can have a chance to have more powerful versions of the affixes that are 1.5 times the maximum row of what that affix would have been. So let's say the max row of life would have been 100. You get a greater one, it is 150, for instance. And you can actually have up to 2 greater affixes, and that will be shown when it actually drops by having the number next to it, letting you know how many greater affixes this item has. So once again, some clarity of items drop. It really seems like they're focusing on trying to make it where you don't have to dig through so many items on the ground. These only drop starting in World Tier 3 and 4, obviously, and then players cannot enchant into a greater affix. So if you're trying to enchant over and over and over again, not going to work. They're only drops, which mean you can't min-max with gold to get the exact item you want, but you can enchant out of a greater affix. So if you have a greater affix and you enchant that line, then it will remove it to a normal affix. So try not to do that mistake. Then there is masterworking, which effectively allows you to do 12 upgrade ranks. These, every 4 ranks, a single affix is massively upgraded. Other ranks slightly increase the value of all affixes. You can see here what this screen actually ends up looking like. It increases your affixes, but on 4, 8, and 12 masterwork ranks, you're going to be having a significant boost in terms of item power on one of the affix lines, which is RNG based, and all the 4, the 8, and the 12, they can all hit the same affix, which means you could triple row onto something really crazy like just damage percentage, for instance. However, while you're doing those rows, the other ranks do continue to increase in value across the board for the item as well. This right here is going to be more of the in-game system in terms of item power structure. It's going to be almost like a gacha system from games where you're hitting the ding, 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 and then you try to get the line on the one you want. You do that multiple times with items that were originally really good. Maybe you have ones to start with greater affixes, so upgrading on a greater affix is probably like the ultimate min-max coming to in-game. Something to keep in mind is they said the base legendary items and unique items that you get are in fact now tradable. Only uber uniques are not tradable. So acquiring these good items that have greater affixes are probably where the economy is going to come from if you are a trade type of player. This could actually have widespread implications for the health of the economy, considering that items were so bloated and there's so many of them and you need so much gold for the enchanting. The trade was a little bit dead. This actually could revive trade potentially a little bit. Keep in mind, to do the masterworking, you're going to have to do the pit, which we will talk about in just a moment. Now for probably the biggest quality of life change, the Codex of Power now takes all legendary items. As you put your legendary item affixes into the Codex of Power, it will upgrade it to whatever your maximum row you've achieved so far is. This allows you to re-row or effectively reuse that legendary affix an infinite number of times, meaning you no longer have to store all of these individual affixes max rows that you have for some future item. They also increase the ranges of the affixes, meaning the floor and the ceiling of these, and then the ranges increase based upon the type of item. So normal, sacred, ancestral. That means while you can get a max row early of one and put it into the codex, that max row is going to be better that you will need to reacquire later on. So if you get a max row of a normal, you will need to reacquire a max row of a sacred, then a max row of an ancestral. So there is still some progression there. However, this will be saved for your account, and you can reuse these. They also have search terms for this, and this is making this a significant quality of life buff in terms of the acquisition and having to consistently save these items. This is what the screen actually looks like, and if you're wondering what the 1 out of 6, 4 out of 6, etc. screen is, those are those ranges. So as you get the higher range of it, you're going to see what your row of those ranges are. They've also made significant changes to Helltide to make it more like the well-received Season 2 Bloodtide. You're going to generate threat, which is sort of straight from what Bloodtide was. Diam resets the threat, and there are 3 Helltide threat tiers. Think of these like Grand Theft Auto stars, for instance, increasing the danger and frequency of monster ambushes. At Tier 3, you become Hellmarked. Achieving max threat initiates a brief ambush frenzy of maximum enemy density. The ambush will end with a final Hellborn spawn, immensely powerful agent. So again, this is sort of like the Blood Seekers. For instance, from the Bloodtide, there are 5 variants, each representing a class in Diablo 4. Very similar to Bloodseeker, basically 1 for 1. Upon activating the Hellborn ambush, your threat will reset. So you generate threat, it pops off, a whole bunch of monsters spawn. This will help, hopefully, with making the Helltides feel more dense, hopefully help with some experience gain, make it more enjoyable, as well as help you with acquiring your cinders. This is another basically mechanic that was taken from Season 3 as well as the Blood Tide. There's going to be little events that happen throughout the Helltide. For instance, Baneful Hearts that can be earned through opening tortured chests can be used at the Accursed Ritual location. So it's an ultimate testament to the disturbing lengths of the Maniac Cultist. So this is sort of like, remember those pillars where you take the blood lures and put them in? Very similar type of mechanic we're seeing here. In fact, this looks somewhat similar to it. You put in the pieces, sort of activates like this Season 2 mechanic. This is a good way of bringing back a Season 2 core mechanic that we all liked in the Blood Tide. I liked the Blood Tide immediately. It was very well received. It was much more enjoyable. And I also hate the Helltide originally, the OG concept of it. So making the Helltide more like Blood Tide might actually make this enjoyable for me. The farm for when I go to do Forgotten Souls and get cinders and all of the things I kind of have to get anyway, which in turn might make farming for the materials that we need for Uber Durio a little bit more enjoyable. It's now also in World Tier 1 and 2, so if you want to just level all the way through the Helltide, you can, although torture gifts or mystery chests instead, no roaming bosses and less density overall, making Helltide better at the higher tiers. Now we get into the pit. This is effectively where you're going to be getting the materials you need to do the masterworking that we explained earlier. The pit, I'm just going to explain this as Gray the Rifts or AOZ. You go in, you're going to be able to spawn different rifts of levels that will raise, making the monsters more and more difficult with more and more rewards. The way they explain it is upon entering World Tier 4, you'll receive a priority quest to complete a Tier 46 Nightmare Dungeon, which is where this starts. Upon completion, you'll collect rune shards during in-game activities. Collect enough of these rune shards to ultimately activate the Obelisk in Saragar. Activating the Obelisk since you did the pit, the goal is to slay enough monsters before a 10-minute timer runs out. Each player removes time from the clock. First death removes 30 seconds, second 60, third 90, etc. Slay enough monsters, a portal appears, taking you to the boss's arena. Killing the boss grants you masterworking materials for that masterworking that we talked about just earlier. Killing the boss before the 6 minutes to spare gives you an additional tier unlock. 6 minutes or more is 2 tier unlocks. Pit has hundreds of tiers of difficulty. If the mastery timer expires before you finishing through the pit, you'll still receive the loot, but won't receive your masterworking materials. So you can still get some items, but masterworking will be locked out to actually be able to complete these. And the pit can be undertaken with groups up to 4, with the player who opened the pit receiving the lion's share of the material. That's because the pit does cost something to actually open. There's like a key effectively, and only the player who opened the pit has a chance of receiving the material used for summoning the tormented echoes. And that is because there is something now called tormented echoes in the game with this boss ladder update. So let's talk about that. Echo of Endario is joining the boss ladder. So now we have Endario. She has the same drop table as Durio. The same bracket as her brother Durio with the same uber unique drop rate. With a mix of Shadow, Fire, Lightning, and her iconic poison attack, and Endario stands ready to face all those who dare fathom her demise. Summoning parts can be acquired from the Beast of Ice and Lord Zir, so now we have a reason sort of to do those bosses more outside of their drop tables, and the tormented echoes of all ladder bosses can be summoned with the new Stygian stones that are tamed from the pit. The stones are needed with an increased amount of summoning materials, but fear not, they also drop more rewards, so you require more materials, and you get better rewards for these. They are level 200, meaning these are like double difficulty effectively, and all item drops are level 925. And defeating your first one, this is a big part, gives you a resplendent spark as a first time reward. So I believe that the Tormented Echo is per boss, is the way I'm understanding this. So if you do a Tormented Echo Durio, Tormented Echo, and Dario Tormented, of each one of these ladder style bosses, you should have enough to basically pick an Uber to craft if you defeat them all, which is sort of a guaranteed path to this, is the way I am understanding reading this and the way that it was explained. So we will see if that's correct, or if the defeating your first Tormented Echo is only a one time and you only get Spark one time. But I was reading this thinking, okay, well, there's multiple of these, which means we can farm multiple first-time sparks. If that is the case, then that is actually a big deal, but we will get clarity on that coming April 2nd here very shortly. Features offered for the testing. Okay, you actually get some bonus stats for the PTR. This is talking about the sort of beta test that we are going to get our hands on here. Campaign completion, mounts and skill points, Fog of War, and all of the Altar of Lilith. So you're not going to need to redo all of those things. You will instantly have your character level 100. You will get a PTR boost, which will immediately get you the 100 when you just talk to an NPC. You get 100 million gold, 1,000 oboes, random sets of gear at 920. So I'm sure you can just re-roll your character until you get the gear you want. Upgraded potions, fully unlocked paragons, 10 temporary manuals, base amount of consumables. Does not include materials specifically for the masterworking, scattered prisms, and resplendent sparks. They want you to actually farm this so that you do, in fact, test the new pit, is my understanding for this. Materials to enter the pit in Nightmare Dungeon are granted, so we're going to all be farming the pit, testing the pit, seeing how the pit goes, then using that for masterworking. Completed class system mechanics, so you don't have to do those side quests. And this boost can be repeated with new characters, and you can trade between characters as needed. So you can just go over and over and over again, spawn basically everything you need, dump it in the stash, use it for all your characters. Fog of War will be cleared. Additionally, whether you choose to boost your character for the PTR, legendary drop rates will be doubled. So double drop rates as well. So this will make it pretty easy for you to be able to log in and even see if you like these itemization changes. I said in one of my prior videos that since this is pretty much the largest change we've had for Diablo 4, I think this is one of those scenarios where if you're looking for someone to wave a flag to tell you, hey, maybe you want to log in and check this one out, it's probably a good time to even see if you like these changes. If you do like the way the changes feel, this might give you some incentive to try out new content as it comes out. If you absolutely hate these itemization changes, you can spare yourself the time and even waiting around, basically. So I think this is about the time to log in and check it out if you're asking my opinion. You can also provide feedback if you want to, and it tells you how to install the PTR to test it for yourself. It'll be in the Battle.net app, very easy. You just hit the little cogwheel, basically, and there'll be a different game version. You click public test round, sort of like you would for like going to WoW Classic or normal WoW, etc. So that's it. There's also going to be class updates, info, patch notes. There are a ton of upcoming changes still for class updates that we've covered very briefly in the other video. And when these actually come out, we will break these down as well. But for now, these are about itemization changes, PTR, and the new bosses, as well as Helltide updates. All looks pretty good. We'll have to see how it feels when it comes out. So I will see you guys on the live stream or the next video. Thanks for checking out this one.